Welcome to the Mom and Brews podcast. Grab yourself a drink and get ready for some shits and giggles. It's Welcome to Motherhood. I'm your host and mom friend, Brittany Barbour. Now, for those of y'all who don't know me, I am a first-time Southern mom to a 1-year-old little girl who is absolutely crazy. Most days you can either find me either sipping on a drink, probably a cocktail, coffee, beer, who knows, or reading a really good book. Some days most days, I'm sitting here and enjoying the aspects, the highs and lows of being a mom. And that's really how most of my time goes. Moments of motherhood are absolutely crazy on some days and absolutely beautiful on others. Now, this podcast is going to be where we can laugh or cry at my pain. So no matter if you are a friend, a relative, if you're a first-time mom, a soon-to-be mom, whatever type of mom, this is the perfect place to sit, relax, and enjoy me just venting most days. So just be yourself and remember that you're actually doing a really great job. This shit does not come with a manual at all. So let's get into it. Let's dive deeper into the surprise of a lifetime. But before we do that, let's talk about what I'm sipping on today. Let me take a sip. It's strong. It is a pre-made strawberry margarita. And I think maybe it has like 13% in it. Yeah, it's 13.9% alcohol. So that's wonderful. But we're just keeping it simple, something light today. And that's kind of how I got to where I am now. So let's see. So becoming a mom was a complete shock. My partner and I had talked about wanting a kid, and we didn't say much about it until we really were thinking about, okay, well, we're getting later into our 20s. What are we actually going to do? When are we going to do this? And we decided that waiting until we were at least 30, which realistically, I am 26. We did not make it there. But we started where we are now and kind of went from there. So I found out that I was pregnant 3 days after St. Patty's Day in 2022. So that was a surprise because St. Patty's Day, I most definitely went out. That was a complete shock. We actually were at a friend or family friend's house, and we decided that we were going to go do a crawfish boil, hang out with some friends, enjoy the time, and things took a turn. Everybody decided that they wanted to have a drink and kind of hang out, relax, and I decided, you know what, I'm 5 days late. Let's go ahead and take this pregnancy test. So I slipped away to the bathroom while everybody was outside, and I peed on that pregnancy test, and when I tell y'all it came back positive within 30 seconds, I was completely shocked. I was looking like Elvis Presley about to pass out on that toilet. I felt my heart sink to my butt. I was just in shock. I didn't know what to think, didn't know what to do. It didn't feel real. The world almost slows down and stops spinning. And, life did not prepare me for this. So once I found out, the first person I called was my sister. I'm on FaceTime. I'm in the bathroom and I'm like, hey, so I have this pregnancy test. I'm like, so mom said to pee on it in the morning. I was like, how positive is it? Even if you pee later in the day? And she's like, I mean, it'll still be positive if it's positive. And she goes, why? Are you pregnant? And I was like, yeah. And she was ecstatic. I about lost my absolute mind. I think she was more happy than I was because it's such a reality flip. I was in school trying to get my master's degree and things just took a turn. Like I didn't know what to expect out of life at that point. So I hang up with her. I run to my partner and I'm like, hey, I just need you to come inside for a second. He's like, okay. And he walks in and I show him the positive pregnancy test. And he just smiles, the biggest smile, and he goes, "Okay, we got this." I was like, "Wow, you're handling this better than I am. I about passed out on the toilet." So I ran back to the bathroom and I FaceTimed my mom and my sister. This was when FaceTime had finally started doing the dual or multiple FaceTimes. And I FaceTimed them both, and my sister already knew. And I told my mom, and I looked at her and she goes, "What? What's wrong? I'm at a winery." And I'm like, "Great. What a perfect way for me to tell you this." So I just turned sideways and I just rubbed my belly. And she goes, "Oh, are you really?" Y'all, this woman cried outside of a winery. But what type of person? I know they thought she was drunk or crazy. Probably both. But yeah, so that was the simplest way for me to tell everybody. And then later that night, we made FaceTime calls and phone calls and told his side of the family, told my side of the family. And I think my dad's reaction is one we'll never forget. I instantly call him and I'm like, "Hey, we have some news." And he's like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I'm pregnant." This man replied with, "Damn, damn, damn." Okay, plot twist, that's fine, I guess. So, everybody's reactions were pretty positive besides that. But once we got confirmation that I was pregnant, we found out that I was actually 6 weeks pregnant. And I think the shock between both of us was unreal. So life kind of just started moving fast and forward from there. So we found out I was pregnant, confirmed everything, and then not even a day later, the pregnancy struggle started. Y'all, that morning nausea is something different. And they will tell you over and over again that it's morning sickness. No, that stuff will hit you morning, afternoon, night. It does not care. It will take you out. I was working at a bank and I was cradled up into fetal position on the floor, hovering over a trash can just to throw up. And it wasn't even like throwing up. I was dry heaving for most of the time. It just hits you and there's not much you can do. You try to eat, nope. Baby doesn't want anything to eat. You try to drink, no. Baby doesn't want anything to drink. So I think that was the hardest part for me. And then, as many of you do know, Mexican is probably my favorite cuisine, right alongside Italian. And at about 8 to 10 weeks, we tried to go get Mexican food, and I could not eat anything. I couldn't eat a chicken quesadilla. I couldn't eat fajitas. I couldn't eat chips and salsa because it made me so sick to my stomach. And I've never been more depressed than at that moment. But finally, that went away around the 3rd trimester. But y'all, there's 3 trimesters. The 1st and 2nd trimester couldn't eat Mexican. What kind of crazy is that? Then, from the morning sickness, you start to develop heartburn. And heartburn hits you just as bad as that nausea. So the heartburn seemed to have gotten me towards the middle to the end of the 3rd trimester. I would be dead asleep and, you're kind of sleeping and you get that feeling that you're about to throw up and you just sit up really fast. Oh, yeah. To this day, I still keep Tums beside my bed just so I can pop 2 or 3 of those and go back to sleep. But, it's not as bad as I'm making it out to be. Pregnancy was actually kind of fun. I mean, if you ask my partner, apparently I was mean to him all the time. I thought I was great. I thought I was the best pregnant woman there was. Clearly not. But, from the bad things of pregnancy, there's always good things to follow. From feeling the first kicks, from feeling the little butterflies of the baby moving around. It's a different type of love that you develop for your kid. My little girl, she is absolutely crazy. She's in the other room playing right now with her dad. But it's a different type of love than just being able to love like my niece or my nephews or loving a family member. It's different. It's stronger. It's a bond that you develop from the day that you have them. And even before then, just feeling them move around is such a joy and such a pleasure to have. Being a mom completely changed my outlook on life. You go from expecting the worst out of life and so scared of everything. And once you become pregnant, it's no longer just about you. It's about the baby. And it's about making sure that you provide them the life that you never had. Once you become pregnant, you really see who your true friends are. But the other things about pregnancy were that when I actually found out I was pregnant, I was in the middle of a bulking season. And for those of you who don't know, that's basically where you just kind of bulk up and weight training and stuff like that. And then you'll have shred season, which is where you shred all the fat. And I found out a week before shred season started. And when I tell y'all, I talked to my doctor. I was like, hey, I want to still work out. And she goes, oh yeah, that's perfectly fine. Please don't fear that. Get into it. Like really dive deep into that. Where I went wrong is I stopped going to the gym. My nausea got the best of me and I really settled into that. I decided that, hey, I'm just going to kind of back off. I'll pick it back up. You don't ever pick that stuff back up until after the fact. At least for myself. But yeah, keep going. Keep striving. Do great. Be great. I messed that up for myself. But now I'm back into it. But we'll talk about that later. And then, you kind of have like your work stressors. As I said, was working at a bank. I'm already a very anxious person. So I went into work just fearing for my life every single day. I became so paranoid that I thought I was going to get hurt. Someone was going to kidnap me, something, just random stuff. So your emotions and your hormones change, and it's the most bizarre feeling. And you don't even realize that anything's happening. You kind of just start to worry more. And that may just be a thing or a part of becoming a mom, where you just worry more in general. But, as I said before, there's bad and there was good for me. And to get away from what pregnancy was like, let's just go into setting up my induction date. Now, if you have ever been induced, everybody's story is different. Everybody's labor story is different. You have people who absolutely had the worst labor. You have people who had the best labor. I will say the main thing that made me have the best labor was having the best OB and having the best support around me. My mom and my partner were in the room when I was in labor. And my induction date was set for November 21st at 5 a.m. Yes, 5 a.m. That means I had to wake up at like 4:30, get ready, grab everything we needed, get out the door, and be there by 5 o'clock in the morning. Y'all, that is the most miserable I've ever been because I had a 13-hour labor. Would I say it was awful? No, I actually really enjoyed my labor, but 13 hours is a long time. And for those of you who know, you don't get to eat. I will tell you 100%. If you are going in at 5 a.m., you might not be hungry. Eat anyways. Eat anyways. Because you are not going to be able to eat until you have that baby. So, anyways, getting into my labor story. My mom had came down like a week or 2 weeks before I had my daughter. And this woman would not stop making me walk. We walked so much. And when I tell y'all those Braxton Hicks contractions were hitting, I was so sick and tired of walking. By the time I had her, I was like, I'm not walking ever again. I don't want to do this anymore. So my mom came into town. We were walking. And I think my appointment was a few days before, and my doctor said, hey, we could get you induced or you could do this naturally. And when I tell y'all, I loved my doctor. Her name is Dr. Brandy Patterson. She is now in Birmingham, Alabama. And she was the best OB I have ever had. Not saying much. I've had one kid, but it says enough. But she came in and she was like, what do you want to do? And my mom said, let's go ahead and have this baby. I've been here for 2 weeks. I don't have any more time. Let's go. So she went and found out that we could set it for November 21st. My due date was the 22nd. So a day earlier was not that big of a deal. And we set it up for 5 a.m. And for the next couple days, it was essentially over a weekend. So my appointment was on a Friday. I had to wait Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. When I tell y'all my mom wanted this baby to come out, I did not have time for this. I said, I don't want to do this. My biggest fear was having my baby without Dr. Patterson. She advocated for me. She listened to me. She knew my birthing plan. I did not want to have to explain that while having contractions to another doctor. I don't have time for that. So finally, November 21st, 5 a.m., walk into the hospital. They walk me to the room. They're like, get undressed, throw this gown on, and go ahead and get in the bed. Y'all, I think I got undressed and had the gown on, and I was walking to the bed, and she was like, hey, we can't put you in this room yet, so we're going to need you to get dressed and go sit in the waiting room. I am terrified. I have spent all weekend watching videos about people getting induced, and I'm already scared because everybody has different stories. I'm terrified. I don't want to go and redo this whole situation. I just trained my brain just to be here for now. So I end up getting dressed. We walk back out. No joke. We walked back out to the nurse's station. We walked back to them and they said, oh, you're good. Panic, straight panic. So walked back to the room, did the same thing I just did. That is so strong. So finally, I'm sitting on the bed, just kind of waiting, and the nurse comes in. And I will tell you now, if you know you have rolling veins like I do, tell them in advance. Because as much as we said that we didn't want any students in the room, when you're really in that situation, you, one, don't really notice that it's a student unless you ask. And two, they are going to poke you so many times until they hit that vein. Y'all, this woman left me black and blue on one arm. So finally, she was just trying to get IV going. She missed 3 times, and I said, yep, that's enough. I said, go ahead and hit the back of this hand. That's where it's at. So the student tried it again, missed. I'm like, okay, this is not off to a great start. So finally, she gets to where she's like, okay, maybe I need to take a step back. Let me just go get the other nurse. No joke. Come on now. So she grabs the other nurse and she gets it in, easy peasy. Just lets it go. Finally, after that situation's taken care of, I think it might have been an hour later, and Dr. Patterson walked in, and she was so excited for me. She was like, all right, we're going to go ahead and get this Pitocin set up. So I'm not sure if y'all know what Pitocin is, but it's essentially the, I don't want to say drug, but it's the medication that they give you to induce labor. So it's going to make your uterus start to contract, and it kind of gets you regulated into that system. I have heard horror stories of Pitocin. I've heard people say that it made their baby scream because of the pressure that it gave them in their head, and just horror stories. Made their contractions worse, different things. And then there, like I said, there was different situations where people were like, yeah, Pitocin is what it is. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Luckily, I got that side. So they started the Pitocin, and I could feel my uterus kind of starting to contract. Not that big of a deal. I should go ahead and tell you, when I went into the hospital, I was already 2 centimeters dilated. So I want to say that's like 2 fingers, if I'm not mistaken. But Not dramatic, but big enough to know that, hey, like, we're kind of getting the ball rolling. So I asked the nurses, I said I want a yoga ball because I had been bouncing all for the past 2 weeks that my mom was in town. When I tell y'all this woman was seriously trying to get me to go into labor, she did everything. We were bouncing on balls, walking, whatever the heck we could do. So I'm like, go ahead and get me a ball. And I would sit on that and I'd bounce for a little while. And then I'd go back to the bed and sit and relax and then kind of walk around the room, go to the bathroom. Like, I thought this was going to be the best time of my life. No. People probably should have prepared me better for that situation. So finally, like an hour later, Dr. Patterson walks in with the two nurses. And she's like, okay, we're going to go ahead and break your water. Perfect. Great. Not sure if y'all know how that goes. But they take a, like, fish hook. It kind of reminds me of when people knit. But she took a fish hook and went in and yanked it. And that is probably the most unnatural feeling of having your water break. I don't know what it really feels like, but it was strange. And she broke my water. She didn't break it all the way. She said she did get a good bit. So that was enough for her. And she said she would be back every hour. So when you are in labor, once they break your water, they can only check you once every hour. It's a bacteria and infection risk that they're just not willing to take. So finally, she leaves, and I'm still doing the same stuff. Bouncing on the ball, sitting on the bed, bouncing on the ball, sitting on the bed. This goes on for hours, and I'm so hungry. Why did my mother and my partner decide that that was the perfect time for them to get breakfast? Beyond me. Because I'm sitting there starving, and they said, you know what? Sorry, starving Marvin. We're about to go eat. So they ended up eating, and I'm just sitting there livid. I've never been so pissed in my life. And I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. I said, I brought ice cream. Y'all, they will literally let you bring like popsicles and stuff in, and that'll get you through most of that until you're really starving and you need some protein. And I'm anemic. Need my protein. Need my iron. And I could not have that. So I actually eat, I think it was like a watermelon flavored little popsicle. And for some reason, it's kind of got me feeling weird. So I'm like, it is what it is. I'm still going to do the same stuff. Bounce on the ball, back on the bed. Bounce on the ball, back on the bed. And the nurse comes in an hour later. She checks me and she's like, okay, well, you know, baby's kind of gone up some. She's not dropping the way that she needs to. Great. So Dr. Patterson comes in and she goes, oh, well, I think this baby's going to be bigger than what we expected. I was a 9-pound baby, give or take. No, that's not what I wanted. So finally, she does something. She checks me or does something while she's checking me. I think she was trying to break my water a little bit more. And right after she did that, I sat up and my mom's looking at me. She goes, you okay? I said, mm-mm. She goes, you gonna throw up? Mm-hmm. Y'all, my mom grabbed that vomit bag so fast and just put it in front of my face. And I projectile vomited like nobody's business. And oh gosh, it's so gross. So while I was vomiting, I was literally peeing myself. Yep. Mm-hmm. Pissed my pants. Well, didn't have pants on because I was in a gown. Pissed my pants. Mm-hmm. Dr. Patterson goes, yeah, keep doing that. That's perfect. That's so good for baby. What? Ma'am, I'm literally pissing myself and throwing up right now. That's good for her? Not sure if you know, but when you throw up, it actually helps your contractions. It's utilizing the same muscles that you would use to push. Didn't know that. Great. Glad this is going good for her because I'm not having a good time. So, finally, they leave and I've stopped throwing up. Remind y'all, they didn't change the sheets. I just sat on pissy sheets. So, I'm done throwing up and I'm to the point where I'm like, okay, let's go walk. Because they will literally let you get up and walk around the hospital. But they'll give you grippy socks. Still have those to this day. but they give you grippy socks, and then they have to move you over to an IV cart that will transfer with you. So I'm like, okay, great. Can you go get me that? So the student nurse leaves, and she comes back, and right as she comes back and I sit up, I'm like, I can't move. I cannot do this. So they're like, okay, well, let's go ahead and still try. They try to put the grippy socks on. Apparently my feet are too big. I wear like a size 9.5, 10. My feet are too big for this. Okay, great. My feet are swollen. So I can't even think about that right now, but they say, okay, like, do you want to get up? She stays in there with me for an hour and a half trying to figure out what I want to do because I'm in so much pain I can't focus. And my birth plan was to go as natural as possible. I did not want to be induced, but I got induced. Still kind of a natural labor. One thing I will say about labor is that whatever you consider natural is natural. You can't let somebody else dictate what your labor experience is like. It's your body. You get to choose what you want to do with it. So I'm sitting there and I'm stressed to the max. I have no idea what to do. So I'm sitting and I'm like, okay, I'm in pain. I don't want to move. And the nurse goes, okay, let me go ask the other nurse. Because the nurse that I associated with mostly was the student nurse. So she leaves and I sit back on the bed. And my mom's just like, what do you want to do? What's happening? And I'm just like, I'm hot. I'm having hot flashes. I just want to cool down. I'm in pain. I can't move. And the nurse comes in and she's like, okay, well, you're going to have to move. We need you to get up and do something. So I'm like sitting up in the bed and they're like, we have to have you either switch positions or something. We need baby's head to drop more. I'm like, okay, I can't move. Like, I'm literally to the point where I'm in so much pain because of these contractions. I'm like, I can't move. I don't know what you want me to do. I can't move. And they're like, okay, well, let's go ask Dr. Patterson. Let's try to figure out what's going on. So they leave and they come back about 30, 45 minutes later and they go ahead and check me. And I think I was like 4 centimeters dilated at this point. Not too far into the game, but almost halfway. And Dr. Patterson checks me. She's pushing on my stomach, moving her around, trying to figure out what we can do for her. And finally it comes down to it. And Dr. Patterson's like, you have to move. You have to be in a different position. You have to do something. So they bring me this like laminated sheet on the different positions I can lay in to help her head drop. And y'all, so there's a peanut ball. And it's like big on the sides and it like skinnies out towards the middle. It's like a slim, thick woman like that. So I'm like, okay, well, let's try something with that because I've heard like a lot of people talking their labor story, like the peanut ball saves their life. They brought this peanut ball. That thing was so big. I try to sit there with on my side with my legs around it. Just having my legs that far apart, yes, was good for my daughter to get her head to drop. But it hurt. And it was to the point where it almost felt like it was stretching my uterus open, which it probably was. I have no idea what it was doing. But it was stretching me to the point where like my hips and my bones and my ligaments, everything was just so sore. Remind y'all, I still think I'm doing great, okay? I thought this labor was the easiest thing, but I'm in pain. So finally, the doctor comes back and she's like, Brittany, I seriously need you to move. Like, we're going to have to figure something out. Now there's 6 people, including myself, in the room. I have the doctor, the 2 nurses, mom, and my partner. And we're all just sitting there like, what are we going to do? I have no idea. So finally, I asked the nurse, the student nurse, I was like, bring me a fan. If you can find a fan, please just bring me a fan. 10 out of 10 would recommend taking a fan to the hospital. Chef's kiss. But the nurse is like, I don't know if we have any. I'm going to go search for you. And I'm like, great. So the other nurse stays and we decide that the best position is for my partner to get behind me on the bed because my back's hurting. I want him to rub me through the contractions. Just want him to rub on my back. So they push me all the way to the end of the bed. They drop the bottom of the bed lower than the back and he sits up behind me and I sit down here and my mom's sitting in front of me. and he's just rubbing my back. And yo, this poor man, oh my gosh, this poor man. So he would rub my back, and I'm like, please lower, stop touching me. Okay, no, don't touch me. Okay, I'm good. Like, those contractions were having me arching my back in pain. And it was like every time he touched me, I would just break out in a sweat and like, I can't do this. And my mom, Dr. Patterson, has left at this moment, and my mom's sitting in front of me, and she goes, are you okay? And I said, no. And she goes, are you going to be sick? And I was like, I don't know. Y'all, my mom is my savior. That woman can tell me and read me like a book. Like, she knows more about me than I know about myself most days, as she should. So she's sitting there in front of me, and she's just kind of holding my hands. My partner's rubbing my back as I continue to, don't touch me, okay, don't touch me. And she grabs the throw up bag and she puts it in front of my face, and she goes, you don't look okay. You look pale. Are you okay? And I thought about it for a second, and I was like, no. And I instantly just started throwing up again. I apparently am the type of person to throw up when I'm in severe pain. Didn't think about that. That's great. But I was throwing up again, and here we go with round 2 of me pissing myself. Remind you, my partner's sitting behind me. So I'm throwing up, I'm pissing myself, and my mom just scoots back, holds the throw up bag. Like, she was trying her hardest to help me. And my boyfriend, well, yeah, so he is trying to rub my back, and he jumps up and he moves out of the way. And I'm still sitting there just throwing up and pissing myself. And finally I get some composure. And remind you, they didn't change the sheets the first time. So my mom cleans my face up, wipes me down with a cold rag, and she looks at the nurses and she goes, can we go ahead and change these sheets? Oh. That would be my kid. But she's like, let's go ahead and change these sheets this time. So they pull me off the bed. I'm still in pain. I don't want to move, but they get me off the bed. And finally they're like pulling the sheets off, put everything to the side. And then they come with more sheets, put the new sheets on, and sit me back on the bed. And I'm like, okay, I think I need something to save me right now. And they had already told me what they could give me. They could give me some medicine for the nausea. They could give me an epidural or Stadol. Like I said, did not want the epidural. My biggest fear is needles. Not sure if y'all have seen those needles, but they're big. Not trying to scare anybody, but they are very big needles. And I think I was more concerned with the fact that everybody's like, if you move, you could be paralyzed if something happens. Like if the needle slips or whatever. Like there's a very big risk that comes with getting an epidural because it goes in your lower back, and I don't want that. So I was like, all right, let's do Stadol. So Stadol's, the way that they described it to me was supposed to be a type of medicine to kind of help with the contractions. They said I would still feel the contractions, but it'd be like way greater. At this point, I'm at like a 8 in pain, and I'm like, okay, great. Let's do that. Run me that. So they give me the Stadol, and they go ahead and give me some nausea medicine, which the nausea medicine is supposed to make me sleep too. Not me. Sleep who? Because it couldn't be me. So I'm sitting there, and I lay back. They turn the lights down, and my contractions kind of lighten up. But from what I didn't know, they started bumping that Pitocin up. They said, let's expedite this process. So finally, they're bumping the Pitocin up. They've bumped it up to like 20 something at this point. I don't know what that means. That's just what my mom told me. I was like, I have no idea what that means, but fine, cool. So the contractions are coming a little bit faster. I think I dropped from like an 8 in pain to like 6.5, 7. I still feel the contractions, but I am gone. Like, y'all, I was gone. They had me laying in this bed, and I had my eyes closed because I said, I'm going to take a nap. This is going to be great for me. My eyes are closed, wide awake. Eyes are open, eyes are closed. If you get what I'm saying. Eyes closed, but my eye is open. My eye is open. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to my mom and my partner, and they're standing beside me. Well, he's standing beside me. She's kind of like from the corner. And he's kind of just like fanning me because I'm still hot and burning up. Still haven't brought me a fan. Couldn't find one. So I'm sitting there laying in bed, and I'm just like, this is the best thing ever. And I started to explain to them what I was seeing. Pause. Trees. Trees. So I would see 3 trees, just like boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom. And with the trees there, they were green trees, but as I felt a contraction intensify, the background of the behind the trees would be red. So the more pain that I felt, it would be really bright red. And as it subsided, it would turn yellow. And then it would be red. And then it would turn yellow. So my contractions were pretty synced up at this point. And it was literally like that's how it was breathing, y'all. The contractions were breathing, and I'm out of my freaking mind. So that's like the trees that I'm seeing, and then that kind of goes away, and I'm kind of like in this black space, and it's just all black around me, and I like kind of sit up with my head. Remind you, I'm not actually doing these things. My eyes are closed, and I like sit up in the bed, and it's like an outer body experience kind of thing. And I look, and I'm in the bed. I see myself in the bed. I see my partner beside me. I see my mom, and they're both looking at each other crazy, like, what is this girl talking about? And I look up, like down by the foot of the bed, and I say, my daughter's standing right there. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, she's standing right beside the bed. It's like, she looks about 8, 9, 10, maybe. It's like, she has long hair. I was like, it's curly, but not like super tight curls. It's almost got like a wave to it. It's brown, and she has, I think I said she had like green eyes, green or blue eyes, and she was just sitting there smiling at me. And it was such an out-of-body experience. It was so surreal, and I could almost cry just thinking about it. But it was so interesting to see. It was almost as if I was telling the future. But she was just standing there, just smiling. And it was the craziest thing. And I thought it was so beautiful. My mom and my partner thought I was crazy. And they were like, if this girl don't go to sleep, we're going to need some help because of what is happening right now. So finally, everything kind of subsides. The medicine wears off. I still haven't gone to sleep. I'm still wide awake. And the contractions are kind of building back up to that like 8 or 9 pain level score. And I finally am like, okay, I'm hurting. I can't do this. And I sat there and called the nurses in. I called them in, I think, twice after the medicine hadn't worn off. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I need to know my options because I don't want more of whatever the heck that was. I'm good without that. And they're like, okay, well, we could do an epidural. And I'm like, okay, kind of just weighing my options. And I'm like, great. So Dr. Patterson walks in. She measures me at 5 centimeters. At this point, it had been all day, all morning, all afternoon, all day. I'm so tired. And we hit the point of no return. Well, not we, me. I hit the point of no return, and I'm in so much pain. And after Dr. Patterson leaves, I tell the nurses, I say, let's do the epidural. I broke. I wanted to cry. I wanted to experience labor in all its naturality. I don't even know if that's a word, but we're going to rock with it, okay? But I was like, I think I need this. I don't know what else to do. I think I need this. So finally, they're like, okay, we'll go ahead and get it put in for you. And I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. And then shift change happens. And I'm like, great, wonderful. So I get a new nurse. And with that nurse, it's just one nurse. And the student and the other nurse kind of bring her in, introduce her, and tell her what's going on. And she asked me if I need anything. And I just explain what's happening and what my expectations are and that I'm planning to get the epidural. And she goes, okay. So they all leave and they come in. The two nurses come in again to tell me that, hey, like, it's been really nice. We've enjoyed our time. And then they leave. And then I have the new nurse. And she's like, all right, well, we're going to go ahead and get you set up and get everything together for this epidural. And I'm like, great. So she comes into the room. She's kind of setting up everything that the anesthesiologist is going to need, kind of beside me and behind me on the counter. She's got everything laid out, and she's like, all right, let's go ahead and sit you up. Worst mistake of my life. Worst mistake. Yeah. So I sit up, and she's like, let's go ahead and turn you off the bed. So I turn, I've got my feet dangling, and I'm just in intense pain. And I look at my mom, I'm like, I need to go to the bathroom now. I need to poop. That's not what I was saying, but I'm sure you can only imagine within how much pain I was in and what I was saying. But I'm like, I gotta poop. I gotta poop right now. Mom, I gotta poop. It hurts. I need to take a poop. The nurse goes, no, babe, it's just the pressure. Baby's just moving down. Remind y'all, I was at 5 centimeters. Baby ain't moving down fast enough, okay? And I just give her this, like, eat crap look. Like, this lady can leave. She's not gonna advocate for me. I'm a fight this woman, okay? So I'm just like, Mom, I gotta poop. I gotta poop right now. I need to go to the bathroom right now. And the nurse is just laughing, and so is my mom. And my mom's like, Brittany, it's okay. You don't need to poop. You're fine. And the nurse is like, I can check you. And I'm like, please, yes, check me. So she lays me back down. She checks to see how dilated I am. And the nurse goes, oh, you're at a stretchy 5. Who is that? And my mom and my partner look at each other, and they're at the same exact time. They say, stretchy 5. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, what? So as I'm laying down, the contractions are still going. I'm perfectly fine laying down. And she's like, okay, like, we got to get you back up. The anesthesiologist is going to be here in a minute. And I'm like, okay. So we sit back up again. I need to poop. I don't feel good. My tummy hurts. Everything hurts. I got to poop. And the nurse is like, okay, maybe I need to go ask another nurse for a second opinion. Thank you. So she walks out, and I turn my feet back around, but I'm still sitting up. And, like, maybe, I don't even think it was 5 minutes. It felt like an eternity, though. But the nurse walks in. My nurse walks in. Another nurse walks in. And the anesthesiologist at the exact same time. And I'm like, great. So all three of y'all thought this was the time. So finally, the second nurse is like, okay, go ahead and lay back. The anesthesiologist says, I'm going to go ahead and leave, just because he didn't know what to expect. Nobody did. And I lay back, and she checks me, and she goes, oh, babe, you're fully dilated. I was just a stretchy 5. Now I'm fully dilated? What do you mean? So finally, I'm like, okay. And she goes, okay, I'm going to go grab Dr. Patterson. She's like, it's about to get really crazy in here. And I'm like, great. And I look her dead in her face, and I said, tell her to hurry the hell up. Yes, I did. I was in that much pain. I was done for. And the nurse walks out. My nurse walks out. She kind of grabs everything that she had. She throws it to the side. And the not maternity ward. Yeah. Labor and delivery ward. The rooms, how they were set up was the bed, a table, chair, couch, and another chair. And then the bathroom. And then there was like a little corner where all the medical supplies was. So she went back to that corner. And no joke, as she was in that corner, there was like 6 to 8 student nurses that came in. My doctor came in. I already had my nurse. And then everything was like getting thrown. Like they were kind of gloving up and throwing the stirrups up. And it was chaos, pure chaos. But at that point, I was so relaxed. Remind you, didn't get the epidural, but I was relaxed. Everything was calm. Like I was perfectly fine. There was chaos around me. I was fine. And I'm just laying there. And I think mentally, I was just trying to prepare myself for what was to come. I was so relaxed. So finally, Dr. Patterson is like trying to get her gloves on and her overalls and whatnot and her boots. And she goes, "Did you really say that about me?" And I was like, "Yes, I did. Sure did. Said it straight to your face. I am in pain." So she was like, "Well, you can go ahead and start pushing if you want to." What? I'm like, "Huh?" She goes, "I've caught babies before. Ma'am, this is not the time to be making jokes. I'm about to push a human out. What do you mean?" So finally, my mom and my partner are standing beside me, and we're all kind of like just getting ready. And my mom pulls her sweatshirt off, and she's starting to tear up. And my partner's starting to tear up. And I'm just sitting there like, if y'all don't stop crying, I'm going to lose my mind. So they've got their sweatshirts off just in case anything gets messy. And they just kind of grab my hands and everything's set in stone and everybody's ready. And I push. And that first push is like a reality push. It's like I got to push harder. I'm kind of trying to push a human out. And it genuinely was like a soft push. It was like a test limit. So I pushed and I was like, oh, okay, I got to push harder than that. And I push again. And I was like, okay, I ran out of breath. Remind you, I thought it was going to be like movies. Everybody was going to count to 10. No. I just pushed. Just went for it. So I push for like 5 seconds and then I get winded. So I stop and I push again and her head's coming out. And I'm like, great. And she's like, "Do you want to touch it?" "No, girl, I don't want to touch that yucky, nasty head." Maybe that's just me. Maybe that just might be me for real. I was like, I'm not touching that. So finally, I do my last and final push, and I literally give it my all. And bloop, here comes my little girl. And she instantly holds her up, and she throws her on top of me. And remind you, my mom and my partner are crying. And that's finally when I let it out, because the reality set in. I have a child. So she came out, I was in tears, mom was in tears, my partner's in tears, everybody's crying, my doctor's just smiling, and Dr. Patterson is letting me know, like, hey, like, you have one tear, like a single tear, I'm just going to stitch this up. I'm so ecstatic, I have a kid, like, life is about to change completely, I'm about to do a 360. So finally, my mom kind of like moves to this side because the nurse asks if my partner wants to hold her, and he goes over and he takes his shirt off and he's doing skin to skin, and my mom takes a picture, and immediately my mom came back and kind of getting stitched up and everything. And man, I was taking needles like a champ. That numbing stuff, yeah, great. So she's giving me numbing cream, stitches me up, and then she starts counting. And I'm like, what the heck did she just count? And I look at my mom, and she's like, she's counting I don't even know the word for it. No idea what I'm talking about. It's the stuff to dry up the blood, but it's like a white cloth type thing, I guess. But they were blue, really. But she counted to make sure that she got all of them. And I was like, I did not realize that is something that you have to worry about. Great. So finally, she finishes up, everybody's kind of cleaning up. I get my daughter back, and I lay her on my chest, and I'm instantly like remembering TikTok videos, and everybody's like, the best way to start breastfeeding is to breastfeed as fast as you can within that first hour. My daughter was born at 7:19. I was breastfeeding her by like 7:30 something that night. And she latched on, and it's an amazing feeling. You don't even think about it being like mouth to nipple or mouth to boob. It's just like, I'm feeding this little life that I made. So finally they're like, hey, do you want to get the vitals and everything? And I'm like feeding her, and it's still kind of chaos around me. And I'm like, can we wait until everything's set in stone? And they're like, yeah. So Dr. Patterson cleans up, she leaves, everybody leaves, and it's just me, my mom, my partner. And we're sitting there and we're enjoying this little life. And finally they come in, they weigh her, and she weighs 7 pounds, 2 ounces, 19 inches long. Born at 1919, which is 7:19 in the evening. And Dr. Patterson loved that because she loves numbers. And I did not think life was going to be what it is now. So after that, we get into what I would consider your recovery period. So we had to stay in the hospital for an additional 2 days. So we had, I think it was Thanksgiving when I was in there, or something close to Thanksgiving. So I had Thanksgiving dinner, and just a bunch of meals. And I don't care who you are. Hospital food is so good. Oh man, it's so good when you haven't ate for 13 hours. Yeah. So I think they gave me like a sandwich or something, and it was the best sandwich I had ever had. And then they gave me, I had brought stuff to eat afterwards. I brought Lunchables. Y'all, when you're pregnant, you can't eat deli meat. That Lunchable hit different, and I still eat them to this day. So, but yeah, so in that recovery period, I was complaining to my mom a lot. I was like, I don't feel good. I'm lightheaded. Like, what's wrong? Something's not right. And I was just scared that something was going to happen to me, because now I have this little life to worry about. I don't want anything to happen to myself. So finally, everything's kind of just relaxed. I've ate. I'm in the bed, and my mom's like, listen, you didn't sleep. You need to get some sleep. And I'm like, great. So I get some sleep. I think I had like an hour of sleep before everybody started coming in and checking my vitals and checking her vitals. And I was like, great, this is such a good time. They do not leave you alone after that. But then we moved into coming home. And from there, we've been raising a 1-year-old. Life moves fast. One thing I can say is, in my postpartum journey, that postpartum anxiety doesn't get talked about as much as you think it does. Postpartum depression gets talked about a lot. Not a lot of people talking about postpartum anxiety. And for myself, I felt like I was constantly worried about what was going to happen to her. She slept in her pack and play for like a few months before I started co-sleeping. Another thing everybody scares you about. My main thing was SIDS. The risk is lowered after a year, I think. And from the day she was born until a year old, I was panicking every single time she would go to sleep. And I have an owlet sock that reads her O2 levels, her heart beats per minute, and something else. It's like a couple of different things that it reads. 10 out of 10 would recommend getting that if you have anxiety, and use it religiously. But, nobody tells you that, hey, your concern is no longer just you. It's you and your kid. And life has been different since then. I panic, especially in this crazy world that we are in. I panic going to the grocery store. I panic putting her into her bed to go to sleep, to take a nap. I panic about if she's too hot, if she's too cold. And this is still stuff that I worry about now, but it's not as bad as it used to be. When I say I had postpartum anxiety, I was to the point where I was literally giving myself anxiety attacks. It is very scary. And the one thing I can say is advocate for yourself, or have somebody advocate for you, and to talk about how you're feeling. If you are not talking about how you're feeling, nobody knows what's going on. So I was constantly telling my partner how I felt. I didn't know what to do. I told my doctor, and pretty much anybody who would listen, I told them about it, because the more that I got it off my chest, the better I felt, the more validated I felt. I didn't feel crazy. Like, people were actually listening to me, and they're like, okay, what do you need us to do? So those are like the main things that I was genuinely fearful of, I guess. But yeah, the co-sleeping. I constantly slept with her beside me. So to this day, I still sleep with my pillows, a small like decor pillow, and then he has his pillows. And that small pillow, I would prop her up because chin to chest, chin to chest. Everybody tells you not to work or to worry about that. Once baby's chin is to their chest, it blocks their airway. So every time she would sleep, I would always make sure her chin was up and out of the way. And then that was really my biggest thing, co-sleeping. That and making sure that she wasn't too hot. They say if you are going to co-sleep, like have your boob out, especially if you're breastfeeding, because it's easier for them to latch and it helps keep their sucking, which helps them breathe. And there are safe ways to co-sleep, but you have to do everything correctly. There's also safe ways for them to sleep independently. You have to do it correctly. And I'm very big on research. I researched everything for this kid. Researched pacifiers, researched sippy cups and straw cups and diapers and what not to put in the crib, what to put in the crib. But now she's 1. She sleeps with like 5 stuffed animals. Best thing in my life. But literally research. Word of mouth will get you a long way, but research is going to get you further. So yeah, those were like the main necessities when I was first starting out. Those first 3 months, man, rough. First 3 months postpartum were terrifying. And we actually, since she was born the week of Thanksgiving, we had to travel for Christmas. And when traveling for Christmas, we had to drive 7 hours to my sister's house. And we decided that we would stop halfway at my partner's mom's house. And even from that drive's like 3 hours, the whole trip in total was like a 12-hour trip. Sucked. I would never do that again. Just being honest. If I could recommend anything, as difficult as it is, especially when you have a new baby and you want everybody to love on your kid, it is so hard for you to travel with a newborn. So hard. Because you're constantly thinking about, hey, like I don't want them to chin to chest, or they need to eat, or we need to change their diaper. Like you don't want to keep your kid in a car seat. What is it? More than an hour or 2? So you're constantly having to stop. It's not worth it. It's really not. Love my family. Love his family. I mean that with the utmost respect. I would never do that again. So one thing to realize is you need to take priority in your child and your safety first, rather than just letting everybody else kind of dictate. And our families have come a long way to understand, like, I mean business at this point. Like, I'm not messing around because she comes first. She's my priority. Sorry. But that's besides the point. But yeah, so from the scary realities of postpartum, you then get to experience everything from the milestones. Like, what is that first year like? I feel like I talked a lot about the fears or the negatives of pregnancy and labor and postpartum, but this life has been the best life I've ever had. I got to watch her. So I was let go of my job. I'll start there first. I was let go of my job. I had her in November. I found out in December that I was going to be let go, but I was on maternity leave. So I went back in March. I worked a week and then I lost my job. So from March until August, I was technically unemployed. And experiencing those months, just being home and focusing on my kid, were incredible. Not a lot of people get to say that. Not a lot of people get to say, I got to spend the whole first year really focusing on being home. And as much as it hurt to go through the situations that we've been through, I would 100% do it again. I got to watch her crawl. I got to watch her first steps. I got to watch her roll. I got to hear her first words. I got to feed her. for the first time in her high chair. Like, those are the most amazing memories that I have that you just can't get back if you miss out on them. So I won't say that there's a lot of negatives of this whole journey. There are a lot of positives. But she is the most incredible child I've known. That may be a bias. She is my kid, but it's so nice to have the reality of what it's like to be a kid. Like, you miss those things. Now that I'm running around and chasing a child, a little toddler who's constantly putting stuff she has no business in her mouth, I'm remembering that as much as it is constantly a pain to say, hey, what's in your mouth? What do you have? What is that? I'm literally watching her experience life. Like, it's the best thing I could possibly say I've ever had to do in my life. So, but now I'm also back to work. But I'm back on my hot mom stuff. I'm back at working out. I'm walking at least, at the bare minimum, a mile, but usually walking about 5 miles a day, just trying to get in better shape because I want to be around for her. And life's not guaranteed at all. So I'm going to do everything in my power to be what she needs me to be and move from there. But y'all can follow along on that fitness journey too. And seriously, follow me on this crazy life that I call motherhood. So yeah. But thank you all for listening to this week's episode. Welcome to motherhood. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Maybe even leave a comment or a review. Tell everyone that you know. And you can follow the Mom and Brews podcast on Instagram and TikTok at mom_and_brews. I will link it where you are either watching or listening. Now join me next week for Mourning the Old Jew. That episode will actually be about what my life was before having a kid and who I am now. Thanks again for listening in. I'm your host and mom friend, signing off. Until next time, take a sip and embrace mom life.